Hey, this is Notser, and today we're on the public test server 8.0 round 3 testing. This is the tier 10 American destroyer gearing, and I wanted to check out an AA build. After all the improvements to sector, defensive fire, even the skills themselves, is an AA build viable, and can it be pretty effective? These are the questions I wanted to ask because, quite frankly, I couldn't say with a straight face that they were effective in round 1 or round 2 testing. It just was laughable, the amount of aircraft that could easily fly in and around you and harass you until the end of the game. For my AA build, honestly, this is my theorized effective build that I'll probably just run all the time. It has slot 3 AA improvement, which extends the number of flak explosions to 2 for long and medium. Slot 6 is continuous DPS and also flak DPS. I always take basic firing training now, and then in the what used to be radiolocation for me, I now take manual AA. And manual AA is one of those skills that ends up feeling mandatory because the quality of life improvement to the sector switching speed and also the percentage sector increase, both of which enhance a system that's mandatory for destroyers, mandatory for cruisers. It should even be mandatory for battleships. You have to learn how to use the sector system, otherwise you can't hope but keep up with the DPS requirement. There's no possibility. Even with a sector unbuffed, defensive fire is not enough. It has to have defensive fire and the sector buffed up in order to do enough damage that the incoming squadrons actually take losses. And if you're not getting losses, if you're just getting AA damage, which thankfully now will be indicated in the top right corner. You note that I've done 11,000 damage to aircraft, almost 12,000. Since we're going to have to do damage to these aircraft, we have to kill them. That's the only way we can hope to slow down the aircraft carrier's impact over the game. Every aircraft that is successfully shot down must be restored. And throughout this game, you're going to see great examples of that. Now, the enemy aircraft carrier, he was successful in attacking, and he tried to drop me with torpedoes, but didn't work out. That's why the torpedo was not actually spotted with the triangle. They're trying something different. And yeah, the bot was able to avoid. We're going up against a bunch of bots. Who cares about that? What I really want to test is how effective is my ability to defend myself and my teammates with AA. And note how quick the sector takes to switch as a DD. It's about 3.5 seconds. 3.5 seconds is completely manageable, or even 5 seconds. You have to do it every single time. You have to always have the primary sector facing the enemy. That's really the only way. So just get used to how I'm approaching this. I've got the part of the ship that's facing the enemy's base always enhanced with sector. And I'm always looking to change the enhancement based on the side of my ship that I feel like the enemy aircraft carrier is coming from. But take note, the Hakuru, he's already sustained some losses to his torpedo bombers. His squadron that he just launched from his aircraft carrier is actually missing 3 aircraft. If we can get a little bit more losses towards his torpedo bombers, they will be even less effective, and it will drop his effective fighting force down to maybe 1 attack squadron before he has to reclaim it and wait for the restoration time. The game definitely feels a lot better from a gearing standpoint and my ability to contribute towards the overall air game. It feels great. I got 7 kills that I didn't have with the previous test version. And honestly, my first use of defensive fire was less than successful. The enemy basically flew through the flak burst area very quickly. The time over target really didn't add up. The nice thing about defensive AA is it enhances your overall damage output. So your continuous and your flak are both enhanced. Now, the enemy has another attack squadron inbound. Note that the attack squadron is at 50% strength. He has taken so many losses, and I want to contribute more with the defensive fire. He's flying right overhead of everything, and just look at all this stuff he has to fly through. We took out 3 already. Can the 4th be taken out? It does. So he just lost 4 more attack squadron aircraft. That's a big deal. He just can't keep up this pressure. And this is where the AA game is really designed to feel very useful. Like in real time, you feel the impact of success. He has to use his dive bombers. His dive bombers are the weakest aircraft against me. I'm going to just try and conceal myself and keep my sector contributing. Note that the aircraft switch to the other side of my ship, therefore I'm switching the sector to the other side. And while all this is going on, obviously the bots are doing whatever. Don't really care about the bots. But I feel pretty good about this. We've got 10 aircraft shot down, let alone the contribution of just damage in general. 24,000 AA damage, whatever they're going to call it. It's doing great. It's looking great. His dive bomb is maybe successful or unsuccessful. Looks like he potentially is going to scramble another one, which I think he just did. His dive bomb didn't sustain as much losses as I had hoped. I don't have defensive AA, but I do have my sector, so I switch it to the side of the incoming enemy. Whenever I feel like he's going to cross that threshold, I'm going to switch it to the other side very rapidly. I have that 2 or 3 second. Ideally, as a great player, you would always have the predicted sector side set up. But we're just, we're contributing with a teammate. We do have a friendly battleship who is out in the open and is sustaining a lot of fire. And I am also out in the open, visible. As my AA is going off, I am having to be visible to the enemy. But that's not really a big deal. I'm contributing so much towards reducing the aircraft carrier's effective fighting force. So yes, the system theoretically could go forever, because they've built it that way. But aircraft carriers that just throw aircraft at the problem, especially early on, they don't have the hangar space to do that any longer. It's not the case where I'm sure many of you have felt like at Tier 10 with the RTS aircraft carrier design. They just threw aircraft at a problem, and their hangar space was so deep that by the time they actually felt it, it was like 2 minutes left in the game. That's not how this system feels, clearly. It's 12 minutes in, only 8 minutes have passed, but he has lost so many aircraft because they've just flown over multiple friendlies who've had great AA systems and defensive fire and the primary sector facing them. He's lost so much that he's basically at half or reduced effective damage output. He just can't keep up with the requirements, and if my teammate, my friendly aircraft carrier, can contribute damage output, it's a win-win. My team has won on both flanks. So I'm really liking the way the AA system feels. It definitely has noticeable increase in the effectiveness. You do have to use the sector system, and that could be disappointing to a lot of players, but it works really well. I'm really happy with the way they've adjusted the system. I do feel like it has the necessary impact for a DD to feel like he's actually a part of a team, and he should contribute. And I think that's great. This is exactly what I was hoping for. Clearly, defensive fire works. But what about destroyers that don't have defensive fire? Prior to this, they were basically useless in their ability to fight off aircraft. Shimakaze, legendarily horrendous, and would honestly get sniped more times than not by the enemy aircraft carrier in the first minute of the game. Well, with the priority sector and slightly enhanced systems, you can totally contribute. Ships like Akizuki, Kitakaze, Hirugamo, they actually feel like their AA matters again. Not that it ever did. And that's because of the slightly different design. They have a lot of flak that they place in the sky. And players with layering find it near impossible to break through. So that's another way that destroyers can contribute, but not necessarily with defensive fire. I like that. It feels like there's variety and options to the play space. So I'm just so excited by the possibilities. This feels so much better. I feel like I actually have AA, and I can't say that with the previous version. In fact, we showed in the previous version how pathetic it was in almost the same situation. Enemy Hakuru wanted to continuously throw aircraft at the problem. In the old version, I didn't do anything. In the new version, I've shot down 13. And we've done 36,000 damage to aircraft, which should be a metric that everyone will follow in the future. It's in the top right corner. It's a little bit of an aircraft icon. That's what that number means. That means that I have done 36,000 damage to every aircraft that's tried to fly over my ship. That's pretty good. I've played games with cruisers that did 40,000. Now they died in the first, 5 or 10 minutes of the game, but they shot down a lot of aircraft. So we're at 9 minutes in. The enemy was forced to basically attack someone else because I was too successful. That's a super success story right there. I mean, the fact that he hasn't even tried to attack me and I'm out in the open speaks volumes to the threat he feels from my system. DDs didn't have that prior to this. I never felt threatened by a DD. I felt threatened by defensive fire, but I didn't feel threatened by a DD's AA system. Now I think I do. And I think that's great. I think every single ship class with skill should be able to contribute to the AA game as well. And I think they've gotten there. I really do. I feel very positive about this system, especially since the previous version was so horrendous. I mean, it really was useless. Completely useless. Now, in the comments, leave your thoughts on everything that you've seen. The damage counter for AA damage. We've got, obviously, defensive fire. It's been improved. Do you like the visual cue that it adds to the gameplay system? It makes the flag burst red instead of an orangey yellow. Obviously, the sector system is something that players are just going to have to deal with. Whether they like it or not, it has to be included in your play if you have any hope of fighting off the enemy aircraft carrier. That can be a concern for some. Is it too clunky? Is it too ugly? Is it too boring? Tell me your thoughts. You've seen how often I have switched my sectors. It's a fairly reasonable route, probably 5 or 10 accesses to the menu. Now it's access with tilde key, or O by default. The keybind menu, it's listed as, I think, AA sector system. It's under the weapons system, and you can rebind that. But sectors, defensive, the animation, everything, leave in the comments what you think. Also, I plan on making videos for the premium aircraft carriers that I have not tested on the channel. Graf Zeppelin, Enterprise, Kaga. Also, I want to make videos on the updated cruiser feel with the AA system, updated battleship. Would you like to see a Des Moines, a Minotaur, a Montana, a Conqueror, or would you like to see AA systems on ships that have, historically very weak AA systems, like the Germans or the Japanese? I'm curious what you think. Obviously, I want to hear about everything. But in this game, in this moment, I was very happy. I was very pleased. I'm just really excited. I love that the system, it already feels better from an AA standpoint. This is more impact than I would normally have in my gearing. And I think that's great. I absolutely appreciate that. And on top of that, it's more contribution towards dealing with the aircraft carrier than I felt like I ever had with the previous system. He just couldn't keep up his harassment, and it shows. My teammates were able to contribute more, and we have a 4-ship advantage. Enemy aircraft carrier's damage output was probably very mediocre, and that's great. That means that my actions have meaning, and that's always what I want. I always want any decision being made in this game or other to have impact, and in this system it does. Now, clearly it's a bot game, so ship kills, who cares? They're skillless. But the AA system works against a player-controlled aircraft carrier. I'm excited for that. I want to see more of that. I want to understand the system even more and see if there's any more tweaking that could happen. One thing that I would love to see Wargaming, and you might see this, the detailed report does not list the AA DPS, and I would love to see the damage done and what it contributed to. I hope you enjoyed this. I hope you have a wonderful day, and I'll catch you next time.